Well, welcome to Nova Legends podcast. Tonight I have a panel of soccer officials so we can talk about all the issues that affect officiating, which, as we know, there's a big shortage of officials in the game. So first of all, welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, as you guys may know, I have a local podcast and I talk to a lot of sports legends from the area. Also, I talk to coaches, legendary coaches, but also coaches of today, mostly basketball and soccer. And I was a basketball player at Robinson High School. I also was 18-year basketball official for Cardinal and the Piedmont down in Charlottesville. So I have a little bit of perspective of officiating, but it's a little bit different. But anyway, so hopefully I know a little bit where you guys are coming from. I thought we'd start by just going around and introducing yourself. Just take a few minutes and just talk about how you got involved in soccer or sport and how you got involved in officiating and any other information that you'd find pertinent. So why don't we start with Ben?
Okay, cool. And so I will give the lawyer disclaimer that our views that we express tonight are our own personal views and not the views of any association that we work for.
We want the truth tonight. We don't want any.
This group will give you the truth for sure. Yeah. So I'm lucky. I mean, I grew up here in Annandale. I got to play in the 70s with a really good group of guys, and we were national champions. We were U19. I played at TJ, went on to play at William & Mary, got involved in refereeing when I was 16. So really almost 50 years now. Retired a couple of times to raise kids and start families or start businesses, raise kids and start businesses. And got into the high school scene probably 4 or 5 years ago, although I refereed the high schools in the Tidewater area of Virginia when I was playing at William & Mary. So still love it. Get out there. And one of my returns from retirement, Eric was my teacher, the instructor.
Yeah. Great. And you guys are still friends to this day.
So, so one thing like people should know is we get on. There's bunches of us that get on and talk about and show videos of ourselves and mistakes and talk about incidents. So we're serious, especially this group of three. We're serious about the officiating, the science of officiating.
Yeah, you have to be. There's a lot on the line. There's very high expectations. So Gabi Morrison, why don't you go next?
Hi, thank you again for having us. So I played, soccer from when I was 4 years old up through high school and D3 College of Worcester in Ohio. And I had never touched refereeing. And I knew I wanted to stay involved in the sport. And after I graduated, I either wanted to go refereeing or coaching. And my dad was a referee when I was in high school. And I was like, it's something else to do. So I decided to get involved. I started refereeing in 2016 out in Hawaii. That's where my family was living at the time. And I've been reffing since. I do anything from youth level games, high school, college, and some adult leagues here and there. So yeah.
Okay, well thanks, Gabi. So next is Eric Highsmith, and I believe Eric, you're also the assigner, which is a very important. Oh, you're not okay. Anyway.
No, that's Gabi's mom. Gabi's mom is the assigner.
Gotcha. So Gabi, we better be nice to you. So anyway, Eric. So Eric, why don't you go next?
I'm just shocked to hear that Gabi's only been refereeing since 2016 because she refs like she came out of the womb with a whistle and a flag. I grew up playing soccer all through elementary school. I played with a group of lads in the Seattle area. One of whom was Adrian Hanauer, who is the owner of the Seattle Sounders. His family bought the team before they went into MLS. So soccer has been, between soccer and music, those have been pretty strong anchors in my life. In 2002, my oldest, Katie, was a U5 player, and I was an assistant coach on her team. And after a goal, the referee wanted to restart play with a goal kick. And I turned to my head coach and I go, I could do so much better than this guy. And he said, well, why don't you? And so the very next season, I took the referee class and found out I enjoyed it a lot. It was AYSO in Long Beach, California. Within a year, they had made me an assigner. In the second year, I was a regional referee administrator. I was actually teaching classes. Looking back on that might have been foolish, but there was nobody else who wanted to do it. And I would basically just teach to the test. I think it was my second year in the summer, I trained over 250 referees, just doing multiple classes. And moved out to Virginia in 2006. I was a regional referee, grade 6 referee, which put me at the time in like the top, what is that, 0.01% of certified referees. And I would probably still have that if they hadn't changed the stupid physical test where you got to run 40-meter sprints in 6.4 seconds. And I tore my hamstring 95% off the bone training for that, and just realized I'm never going to get that fast again. I've been a USSF certified referee instructor since 2009. This past year, they changed my title from instructor to mentor. And that has thrown it open to a lot more people have access to become mentors. It's a good process, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. I'm also the chairman of the VYSA Adjudication Committee for U.S. soccer matches. If we have coaches that commit misconduct, referees are abused or assaulted, and if we've had a couple cases where referees have committed misconduct, my committee hears those cases, takes evidence, and then issues sanctions with regard to those things. So that's a pretty interesting thing to be doing. And also it feels really important, especially in this time when there is a referee shortage. And I want to make sure that our referees know that we have their back and we're going to support them, and we're going to weed the bad people out as best we can.
Well, I want to get to the referee shortage in a moment, but first of all, you talked about getting hurt, and it reminded me, what are the physical demands on a soccer ref? Like, for example, in basketball, I think they overemphasize the physical. They want the tall ref with the big arms. They act like you actually have to guard the play sometimes, and I was actually on the athletic side of officials, but I always kind of rolled my eyes. If a person was a good ref, had a good judgment, was tough, had poise, to me, that was important, because those were the refs I grew up with. Those were, Just Kersey, the guys who refereed in the NBA. They weren't these big strapping guys, but now they emphasize the physical with officials. How much do they do that in soccer? Is it important to be fast? Do they want you to be tall? They want you to be strong?
Have you seen a soccer referee lately? If you go out to some of the typical fields, we have a referee shortage, and as a result, there are still a lot of people still refereeing who should not be refereeing because they just don't have the physical ability to do it. They can't run. But to their credit, a lot of those people still have, the knowledge of the game, and they know what to anticipate. So they might not be covering the miles that the three of us cover in a match. But I find that in a typical competitive match, 45-minute halves, as in the center, I'm running between 5 and 6 miles a match.
Really?
Yes, I did a women's CCL Pro 23 match last night, which was mostly college soccer players. 45-minute halves, and my final stats were somewhere around 5.2 miles. So I anticipate running about a mile every 15 minutes, and as I'm getting older, I'm finding that average is going down to about 0.8 or 0.9 miles. And then on the line, it always seems like in a competitive match, I'm doing a half mile every 15 minutes. So a typical line for me, I'm running 3 miles, except for in college. The college boys drug my butt up and down that line. And I had several matches where I had ended up with 4 miles.
So Gabi and Ben, you guys want to add to that?
I was going to ask Gabi, I'm sure you track this in a high school game. So 40-minute halves, boys or girls, what are you doing, do you think?
Well, I do track it, and I hit right between 5 and 7 miles. I always say if I'm running more than 7 miles in a game, then I'm running too much. But I've also found that in at least the girls' high school game, I seem to run more than the guys. And I don't know if it's because I'm trying to anticipate play, because I know that I physically am not as fast as the guys. So I seem to run a little bit more in the girls' game than I do in the guys, but I don't know.
Maybe maybe the girls' games that you do, they're keeping possession less. So the ball's going back and forth faster. And
it could be. Yeah. There's some games where you feel like you're right with play and it feels great. And then there's other games where you just are sprinting back and forth and you're like, when is this going to be over?
Yeah.
So I'm maxing out at about 4.5 miles in a high school boys or girls game. I'm older, right? I'm smarter. I know where the ball's going to go. But to your other question, I don't think there's a huge emphasis, as Eric says, a huge shortage. But even if there wasn't a shortage, the size and the brawn isn't as looked at, I don't think, by assessors as, do you know where to go and can you get there? Depending on the level of the play. But all three of us work out off season, in season. I mean, I think, one of the things I think we want people to understand is we don't just show up at a game. We spend hours looking at videos, studying. Every game teaches us something new about the game. And we've been doing it for many, many years, and we train all the time.
Yeah.
So let's get to the referee shortage. Is the shortage at all levels of soccer, and has there always been a shortage? Is this something that's new? Because I saw your video that you did at the West Springfield High School game. Anyone who saw that video would expect an official shortage. With the abuse that was going on in that video. So what's caused it, and how long has it gone on?
So the National Federation of High School National Federation of High School, that organization estimates it lost 50,000 officials in the last 3 years, all right, across all sports, judges, umpires, referees. A lot of that was COVID. It was, the older you were, the harder it was to come back from COVID because you're detrained, right? So you have that. You have young players who Eric trains and gets out there for a season, and they can make good money and they can run their own schedule, who don't want to come back because of and I from a personal standpoint, it's a relative few adults. Like, most people in the game are really good, right? Good about the sport, but there's a few who just make it miserable. And so that youngster doesn't want to come back because he or she didn't have a good experience. And a lot of older referees they're just tired of it. And, now with social media, I see abuse videos and fights and stuff like that almost several times a week because of the different groups that I'm in. And as a lawyer, part of my kind of role nationally, I've sort of taken on is I advise referees who've been involved in assault cases and sort of teach them what the system is from that standpoint.
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in here? When I refereed basketball, I was seen as having a bad attitude. I was like, what does that mean? And like in basketball, it's very cliquish. The folks would go drinking after the Tuesday and Friday games at a bar. You had to be in that clique because everyone evaluated everybody else. So my friends got A's. If I didn't like you got a C. And then we do a game, and I understood the game pretty well. I played at a pretty high, a decent level. I come in the locker room after a game. They said, Julian, that travel you missed, what did you see? I'm like, what do you mean what I saw? It's so typical, in a game where you have, probably 500 decisions you have to make. I can get everyone right. So I got tired of all the politics, and I was young, I guess I was less than 40, and I had 18 years experience. I just gave it up, and I got tired of the politics. Do you guys have the same type of politics with soccer?
I don't think we really have those type of politics. I think there's some questions about the way U.S. soccer has been changing their program and modifying things. And I mean, I've gotten to the point to where I just don't care anymore. One of the main reasons why I referee is I really enjoy the camaraderie. I mean, Gabi and Ben and Gabi's parents and Ben's brother, Dan, and I mean, there are a ton of people that when I get my assignments, I go, oh man, I'm so looking forward to working with Jonathan. I'm so looking forward to working with David and all these other people. And it's and generally speaking, I think referees, soccer referees in particular, are very supportive of each other. And there really aren't any like blacklists or anything like that anymore. That I think maybe back when I first moved to Virginia, there were a couple of signers I was a little suspect of the way that they did things. But I think on the whole, I mean, unless you're doing a signer wrong, and that's like failing to show up for your assignments, or they find out that you declined an assignment because you accepted a better assignment with somebody else. It if you show up and do your job and give your best effort, doesn't matter if if you're trying hard to be a better referee, you will get the work.
Yeah. So, my son played at Yorktown the last couple of years. We had a really good team. And one thing I would say, we lost some heartbreakers, and our officiating was, I want to say terrific, but that would sound bad, like we got a break. So I'm going to say our officiating was solid all year long. I mean, I thought people did a good job. There were no penalty kicks I thought that were unfairly given, even though at least a couple were given against us. I thought the high school games were done really well. I think some of the club games, all depends on what's going on a 90-degree Saturday. Sometimes maybe they're short, but I thought the high school level was very high.
Let me ask Gabi, because she's younger than Eric and I, and I know that she's gone to referee in the youth program, regionals and stuff. And Gabi, I don't know how far that track will be for you or how far you want it to be, but when you're sort of competing, I think, for positions at some of these tournaments where they're looking for referees who want to move up, I'm not in that game anymore. Do you feel at all that there's politics there, or is everyone being, you think, fairly judged on merit?
So I'm a couple years removed from, USSF soccer at this point. Since COVID, I kind of took a step back and focused on getting my body healthy, and because I was running my body into the ground. But I mean, when you go there, I think you're looked at based on your abilities and how you perform in the game. Of course, if you've been seen before in the area, you have a little bit of a better in. When I had come here in this Eastern region, nobody knew who I was. So I was kind of at first placed kind of like on the outskirts. I kind of got like the younger games, the less competitive games, but I worked hard to show what I could do. And so going into regionals, like later on in the tournament, they were like, okay, let's challenge her. Let's see what she does on this game. Let's see what she does on this game. So, I mean, I think as long as you work hard and try your best, that people will see that over maybe like a political or a friendship bond going into the game. But I try to have a positive outlook on that. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of the intricacies everywhere you go, right? So prepare yourself, as best as you can, control what you can control.
I want to add that in U.S. soccer, there is tremendous room for advancement for female referees because there are not a lot of them. I don't know the exact statistic, but I would wager that maybe 15-20% of our referees are female. But look at the professional games, look at the international games. When it's a women's match, they're trying to put women in the referee crews. And so they have to advance them. And so for people like Gabi, we have 2 female FIFA level referees from Virginia, both of whom did high school soccer with us this past season. They get the attention, they do well, they get more opportunities for advancement, and then they get more training and education, they get the experience, and then they get good assignments, they get seen, it's a great cycle for them. I saw that with both my daughters, especially my oldest daughter, that if refereeing is something you find that you like, and you're a woman, boy, you can really go far and fast.
Do the women now do they try to have women for the girls in women's games because they want to have those role models out there, or do they want to give women exposure to boys games as well? Because the boys need to have those women role models as officials as well. What's the philosophy with soccer, or is it just depends?
I think there's a certain amount of trying to make up for past mistakes. We've had a lot of really talented, superior female referees, especially out of America. And there weren't the opportunities for them to referee professional soccer because, well, we're only going to have men do men's games, right? And I think we missed a whole generation of really talented referees. And so this is just my personal opinion, but I think soccer in general is trying to make amends and give more opportunities, and then recognize people just based on their quality as a referee. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether you're a man or a woman. Are you a good referee? Do you cover the field? Do you make good decisions? Do you have a good personality? Can you manage the game? I mean, that's why we're seeing people like Tori Penso doing MLS matches, and Stephanie Frappier from France, who was doing UEFA Champions League matches. Those are, I mean, if I could be fit, I would love to do one of those games. But that's where we want to go. There are going to be women officiating the Men's World Cup this coming winter. It's fantastic. There's a tremendous opportunity for women, and I think our sport is working really hard to level the playing field and to make it not about are you a man or a woman, it's are you a good referee.
I've been watching games for the last 10 years. To have a female official is not even a big deal. You wouldn't even notice that. I mean, I would say not half the games, but let's say at least one every third game there's a female official, and she's often you guys call them the officials, and then the
assistant referees.
Yeah, so it wouldn't even bat an eye to most fans, I don't think, locally.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gabi?
Ditto. Exactly what you said. I mean, there's so many opportunities, especially for the young female, referee, who any young female that wants to get involved should get involved. And a lot of the high school games I go to, I did a lot of the girls' games this season, and a couple of them I would say like, oh, you should be a referee, like get into it now, like start as early as possible, because you're going to learn and you're going to grow, and you'll be fostered and taken care of through the whole process. So I always encourage young females to get involved.
So in basketball, maybe it's more prestigious for some. They want to do the boys varsity games. And the reality is the girls game is very challenging to officiate because they play through contact differently than the boys play through contact. So it's just the timing of the game is different. So it's not harder or easier. It's just a different game. So it just takes some getting used to when you switch over and if you've been doing a lot of boys and you do a girls game and vice versa, there's a little bit of a transition. And I think Gabi hinted at this early, that she may run more during a girls game. Is it the same way in soccer, in that it's a little bit different doing a boys game as opposed to a girls game?
So from the competitive nature of the game, you look on arbitrary, you get a game, it's assignment. A girls game in high school can be as competitive as a boys game. Right. What I have often said, and I joke with Eric, is a girl player will say things to a referee that a boy player won't. A boy player yells at you because you missed a call. A girl player, in my experience, will try to tell you what you need to do next. Like you need to do this. And
Helpful criticism.
I don't do this. But from my perspective, the game, a difference I see for most, if you take most girls games against most boys games, in boys high school soccer in Northern Virginia, for 80 minutes, most of the time they're going 110 miles an hour, and every ball is contested for blood. Most girls games are a level below that. Now you can get the girls game where for 80 minutes everything is contested and run at very high speed. So that's a difference. But from a point of view of, you get assigned a game and you go out to do it, I mean, for me, I'm just excited to still be able to be out there and to have a great seat, at the game and get through it and get through my, less miles than Eric or Gabby do. Gabby, did you do any boys centers this year?
Actually didn't.
We gotta,
Well, I did some of the JV games and, the young guys. So, yeah, and I was on a couple lines. My mom just reminded me.
Not a Thunder. We need to get you.
You need to talk to your signer about that. Say, hey, in preparation for this, I looked over my season and I wrote down some statistics. I had 20 varsity girls matches and 15 varsity boys matches, and it was about half in the middle and half as an AR. In the varsity girls matches, hold on a second. In the varsity girls matches, we had 26 yellow cards. In the varsity boys matches, we had 54 yellow cards. Okay. I had 5 games. Varsity girls had 0 cards. That never happened in a boys match. Okay. To me, my opinion is that the girls' game is a lot more technical. These ladies really know how to play. They know what they're supposed to be doing. Boys are stupid. Boys just do dumb things, and the heat of the moment gets the better of them. And I had 8 yellow cards this season in varsity boys matches for what we call incidental profane language. Okay. 0 in the varsity girls matches. 7 cards for dissent in the boys matches, 3 in the women's matches. Yeah. The ladies just come out and they play, and they understand that mistakes are going to happen from their teammates, from me. But the boys sometimes just, fellas, put your head back in the game and just play soccer.
I found the same thing with basketball as well, in terms of conduct type of fouls. But the fans, I felt, if you miss contact on girls, the parents will overreact like the girls can't play through the contact. Someone's going to get hurt out there is the common refrain that you hear all the time in a girls' game. It's almost like the expectation is you're going to call the game closer, whereas you're just trying to call, the same advantage, disadvantage as you'd call in soccer. So I think.
Hey, Julian, when you were refereeing basketball, did you ever hear somebody in the crowd yell at you to call it both ways?
Once or twice.
Okay. That's like, yeah. This is the foul. I've watched some high school basketball games, and I can't stand to watch it because what I see is the coaches yelling at the officials, and the officials have to take it. We don't have to take it in soccer.
Is that right?
Oh no, not today, not here. As Ben likes to say, we don't do that around here anymore. Once
you warn right away, you go the yellow.
Warn them, and then send them off. And most of the coaches have been really good this year. I'm looking at my statistics, and I had 2 yellow cards to coaches in varsity girls, no cards in any of my varsity boys matches, and 2 coaches cards in JV matches. And I'm not talking about we have to show a card if a player comes out on the field with jewelry. That gets credited to the coach. I'm not counting that. That happened.
Wow. Yeah.
Season. But it's a different atmosphere than basketball and soccer. I really enjoyed my high school season. I had a lot less problems with parents and coaches in high school soccer this season than I did in comparison to like travel or some of the semi-pro stuff that I do.
Ben, you were going to say something, Ben, here?
I was just gonna say, what we teach the soccer referees is to recognize, like we talk a lot about foul recognition, like the ability to tell what's a foul. Now dissent recognition and recognizing it. And then I did a session for the group in preseason about, now how do you deal with that? How do you confront it in a way that recognizes that somebody's brain is on fire? Okay, and so now we have to de-escalate that and get them to behave. Like I said earlier, I don't know if I said on this one yet, but the high school athlete, like I love the high school athlete. I have almost zero problem with athletes at all. Like they're good kids and you can talk to them. And most of the coaches, there's only a minority of coaches who make the game miserable. And I hardly hear anything in the stands. Usually we're wearing a headset, and you're so focused, and you're trying to do the game, and you've got audio coming in your ear, and different from basketball. Like, hats off to you for being able to do that, because basketball, their fans are right there. In soccer, they're in high school. I mean, they're up in the stands, and it's rare that I can hear even what's going on in the stands.
Do you guys like the rule changes for high school, like the 40-minute halves with the stop clock in the last 2 minutes? Also, the yellow card, you must come out. Overtime. Do you guys? I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it because 10 years of club, it was kind of cool to do something a little bit different. But how do you guys feel about those changes?
It is what it is. National Federation of High School has got some. They're always about a year behind international soccer. It just is what it is. And what it allows you to do, Julian, is sometimes something will happen and you go, oh, that's a high school rule. And since none of the kids know, like, what's a high school rule and what isn't, they go, oh, okay. And most of the coaches don't know either. Oh, it's a high school rule.
This year, the Langley Yorktown game, it went into overtime. So I was sitting on the Langley side because I take pictures in the Yorktown. The visitors' stands are inside of the track, so you're right on the field. Yeah. So the Langley crowd started to leave, and I was like, guys, they're going to overtime. They thought I was lying to them. I guess they hadn't been in overtime in a few years. So their players came back on the field, and they started coming back in, and they're like, "You're right." I'm like, "Yeah, I told you, it's overtime."
We need to get rid of overtime in high school. There's no point to it. You have these student athletes, and now you're going to make them play, extra soccer, and they need to get home. They got to do their homework. They're probably playing on the good players are also playing on the weekends. We need to, that's nothing that we have any control over. We have to wait for the National Federation to say, okay, we're not going to do high school. I'm hopeful that we're going to get that soon, because college has just said that in the regular season, there's not going to be any overtime. And I hope that high school follows suit, because it's pointless. It's really pointless to do that. But other than that, the differences in the rules in high school as opposed to the laws of the game what we use in U.S. soccer, it's insignificant. It really doesn't alter the game that much. I don't think it has.
I got a big one for you though. Last year, Yorktown played South Lakes in the regional final. Only one team would go to state last year because of COVID, and because of the way the high school does penalties, the 5 players keep shooting penalties. So both teams made 11 in a row. And if we finally got a save on their 12th shot. That probably wouldn't happen if you went through the whole roster, because you get your fullback, your center backs shooting. So goalkeepers, yeah. So that was actually pretty significant, and I didn't realize that the rule was different.
Yeah.
That's
okay. I'll give you that one.
You get little printouts to remind us in the playoff season about that. I don't think we had overtime, but Gabi has a record, because a year ago in a tournament game, we left Briar Woods at, I think, 11:30 at night.
Yeah, I want to say it was like a regional like final or something, and there was a lightning delay.
Lots
and the athletic director said, "Oh, you guys can pack up your stuff and just wait in your cars, but we'll turn off the lights and then you guys can go home." So we're waiting there. 2 hours pass by, and I finally walk out back over to the field, talk to the athletic director. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to start this back up." And I was like, "Are you serious? Like, you do realize if we start this up, we're going to play another, what was it, like 39 minutes? Because I think I'd stopped the clock like 15 seconds into the second half. And I was like, we're not going to get out of here until 12. If they tie it, we're going to go into, overtimes. Like, we are going to be out here forever. And, people like Ben and our other official, the other official had been out there since 5 o'clock for the earlier game. They hadn't eaten. They hadn't gone home. Wow. So it was just a hot mess. We were out there, I think, until like 11:30 or something like that. Yeah. So it's hot.
You need to talk to your assigner about that one.
She was fully aware.
Okay. Just do what the athletic director says to do.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to some of the more difficult calls that you guys have to make, do you guys do like basketball? They call it A, B, and C refs. A refs is the top rated, B solid, C maybe beginner, or maybe an older rep that is maybe he's hanging in there, but it's not as good as he or she once was. And they try to give regular season maybe A, B, C. Late in the year you get A, 2 Bs, and or all 3 A's for a regional final. You guys have a similar type of mix where the center is going to be your A, and then you may have newer, less experienced or less highly rated refs accompanying that person.
Gabi gets her mom in.
Yeah.
I do know that our high school association has a ranking system. So everybody that comes into the association is basically like assessed or mentored on a game to kind of see where they fit. Sorry, my cat is meowing. To see, kind of how they perform in the game, physical fitness, the knowledge of the game, how they, work with the teams, the players, the coaches. So then you're assigned some sort of ranking, and that's used by the assigner to get placed on games.
How exactly are you guys evaluated, and is it different for club games and high school games?
It's different, because high school we have an association. I am not a mentor assessor, so I don't know like the specifics of that. I don't know, maybe one of you guys know.
Well, I'll tell you that for most club soccer in Northern Virginia, anybody can go to the assigning website and say, I will do that game, because on most game days, not all slots get filled.
Wow.
So old guy like Ben Glass says he looks for like a competitive 16, 15, 16-year-old game at 8 o'clock in the morning before it gets hot. And he does one game and goes home, right? But there isn't, there's not a lot of vetting, because the supply and demand side at the youth level is so weighted in favor of the referee who wants to work. And you asked a question earlier, Julian, about politics. Like, there's no room for politics because there aren't enough referees.
All hands on deck.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then for the high school, I mean, the thing I can say with confidence is that when I go out to a game, even if I don't know their other officials on the team, I know that they are interested in the game. They're dedicated officials. They have been vetted. They have been mentored. I love working with, it doesn't necessarily have to be a young referee, but it could be someone who's new to CSOA, right? Someone who's an experienced referee, but now their kiddo probably has graduated from high school, and now they want to, the mom or the dad wants to stay in the game, or the kiddo. So you've got a lot of coaches that watch this podcast, and they're coaching a lot of players who, many of them are not going to be playing in college. And this is kind of the end of their competitive career. It's like, we want those guys and gals, like, we want them to try refereeing. And particularly if they're staying in this area, like I'm recruiting, say, come referee for the high school, like next year when you're still in the area and you finish your high school career. That's who we would really like to find, because I'll tell you this: the mentoring is good, the coaching of referees, the assessment of referees at the high school level is really good, and it is taken very seriously by CSOA, by the organization that that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, just in case any would-be referees are listening, hopefully my son over there is listening. How much can officials make? How is the money?
The money is really, really good. There isn't a job that a teenager can get where they can make the kind of money that they're making in these matches. Doing just little kids, U9, U10 rec matches, they're getting paid $25, $30 for a match that's over and done within an hour. And then, so like in high school, if you're the referee for the varsity match, you're only doing one match because we want you to have fresh legs.
Right.
And essentially you get paid $80 for that match. If you are the AR in the varsity match, that means that you were a referee in the JV match, and the total fees come out to almost $120 for that one night.
Well, that's great.
And I would say the average right now for like older teenage match is probably about $65 for middle and about $35 or $40 for ARs. But I mean, my son, when I remember one weekend he worked, he worked 8 matches on a Saturday and 8 matches on a Sunday, and he came away with like $1,500.
That's amazing. And those kids, they can, when you're 18, 19 years old, you can probably work.
You can do 8
4 or 5
matches on
days.
Saturday and 8 matches on Sunday.
Yeah.
I got 2. I'll give you 2 a day. That's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing is, again, back to the supply and demand side, is you can decide what assigners you want to work with. You can decide at the youth level, like where you want to go. Like the hardest part about the high school level is we cover from Mount Vernon to Stafford to the farthest west, Loudoun County, the cities I've never been at before, right? And getting there, like leaving work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to drive with westbound traffic for sometimes an hour to get to a field. That's the hardest part. And then getting home at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of, for me anyway, of refereeing at the high school level, is that we cover a wide geographic area. And Gabby's mom plays fair, and everybody has to serve their time and go do some of these far-flung schools a couple of times a year.
Yeah, there's an African American ref. I'm sure you guys know him. He's a really good ref, young guy. He just moved out to the Stafford area around there. I can't think of his name, but he used to do the futsal Alexandria during wintertime. He'd be there for 8 hours. I'm like, dude, you're gonna break down. But the money was so good. He was there from like 8 to 6 Saturday and Sunday. I can't think of the guy's name again, but really nice guy. Yeah.
Ben and I don't do it for the money, and I would wager that Gabby's probably in the not doing this for money, because you'd have to work way too hard. I know one referee, our friend Josh Pitt, who that's his job. That's what he loves to do, and he just referees, and he doesn't have anything else going on. For teenagers, that I mean, I've already said it, but it's so true. There isn't a better job, especially if you've been a soccer player. You have all of the skills to be a referee. You've internalized so much of this game. You just need somebody to sit down with you for a couple hours and go, okay, and so this and that, and connect the dots, and you're ready to go.
Well, I'm going to put this in the comments, but where exactly should a referee go if he wants to start? What's a good place to go to start?
Give me a second, and I'll give you the exact website address.
Okay. We'll put it in the comments.
Okay, good. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really easy process. You go to the Virginia Metro DC website, and it's really it's such an easy process to follow. The actual address is vadsoccerref.com. Okay. vadsoccerref.com. Okay. And it's just from the main page. You just follow the links to through referee registration and becoming a referee. And it's easy process. It's now about 4 or 5 hours of online work and a 4-hour in-person class at a field. And I wish it was longer, but because sometimes I let these kids go at the end of 4 hours, 4.5 hours. I'm like, I need to spend a little more time, but some of them I was just like, you're ready to go. Yeah. So.
Well, since I have no more soccer on weekends because my son graduated, I'm either thinking about going back to basketball or getting into soccer. I've always wanted to try soccer. The only problem is, basketball, it's always the same temperature. It's always 70.
That's true. I think Gabby and I were out on a game this spring. I swear to goodness, it was 42 degrees and just torrential rain sideways. I don't even think the parents came to that game. I think there was nobody there. But,
I think I wore my short sleeve jersey 4 times this entire season. So I was wearing my long sleeve jersey for most of the season with other layers underneath. And I was like, is it summer yet?
Yeah.
There was a Monday match early in March where we got an email from CSOA that said, forget about our rules about what players can wear. Just wear whatever you can to make yourself comfortable. I was at Robinson High School, and I remember it being 18 degrees.
Yeah, that was Robinson versus Yorktown. That was our game.
Yes, it was.
And it was overtime. And so
it went to overtime. It was a goalless draw. It was a fantastic match.
It was a great match.
Both sets of boys were excellent. but it was just ridiculous. And I remember doing the coin toss before the first overtime period and looking at the captains going, of course you guys are going to make us do overtime tonight.
Well, I posted photos from that game. I take pictures of the referees and put them on my Nova Soccer Source Instagram site. And I had pictures of you from that game. I didn't put two and two together, but I'll make sure I'll share them with you.
Yes, I want to see those.
Yeah.
I wasn't wearing shorts that night, I can guarantee you.
No, that's right. You were dressed really warmly.
I was in pants, earmuffs, the whole bit.
Yeah. Well, let's get to some calls now. So as a person who just started following soccer about 10 years ago, didn't know much about it before, but I've watched a lot lately. The two calls I think are the hardest are the things I see that refs can do better, from my humble opinion, is offsides are impossible. And it's not the official's fault. It's just so hard. Even, when they have the VAR professionally, it's so hard to get, when the ball's released where he was. I feel that's a very tough call to make. Sometimes I wish they just do away with the offsides call like they do in Europe. The kids, they don't have offsides till like U14. That, and I also feel that officials should give yellow cards for hard fouls quickly. I think you don't want to give yellow cards away. And I see that mentality for not wanting to give a red card, but I think when you have hard contact, you just pull the yellow out right away and just clean it up. I feel like some officials are reluctant, and I'm talking a lot more like club than high school, but I just feel like there's a reluctance to give a hard foul a yellow card early. And I think if you do that, sometimes it might clean things up. Those are my observations from the stands.
You probably get agreement here with the three of us, right? I mean, that's true, right? I showed Eric some video earlier this year that because all the high school games are recorded now, and I was the assistant referee, and I made an offside call, and to me, in the moment, it was 100% clear, and I was 100% right, and it wasn't even close. On video in slow motion, I was wrong. It's like, and even with you have football lines in the high school soccer game to help you, right? So there's a bunch of science behind that. It is hard. Refereeing high school soccer, I think, is the hardest. Now, I've not refereed college, and I haven't done these pro games that Eric does, but the high school field is narrow because they're still playing on football fields. And a lot of the turf is worn out, and so the ball bounces. Yeah. And as I said earlier, there's, especially the boys' game, everything is 110%. And that game is hard. It's much easier to referee a 17-year-old, very high-end travel game on a wide field. You can predict where the ball is going to go. The players are uniformly good, which you don't always see at high school. You have a disparity in talent. And they tend to substitute less, so they're not, they're not going 110 miles an hour the whole game. So I think that's another thing I wish people would recognize who aren't referees, is that in my view, that's the hardest type game to do. And there's pressure because there's crowds, and these games are important, and there's ceremony and all that stuff. But it'd be great if the field was bigger, wider.
I could talk to the offside thing because, like Ben mentioned, we've studied this. And one of the things that I find for spectators are watching the ball, and they're not doing the job that the AR is doing, which is watching where that attacker is in relation to the second to last defender. And so if you're watching the ball and then the ball gets played and it goes over here and you're like, well, that attacker is way beyond that defender. They have to be offside. Well, they're not, because if you're watching when the ball was kicked, they were in line and maybe even behind it. So for a spectator, if you're not watching what the referee is watching, you're going to miss offside more often than not. And I would wager that we generally get the offside calls, I would say maybe 90% correct, if not even more. But as I've said it so many times in my referee classes, when you're the referee, you get one look at it from one angle in real time. You get no replay. If you're on comms, you can talk to your assistant referees and go, I don't think I have anything there. No, Eric, foul. Oh, okay, which way do I point? We're human. We're going to make mistakes. We don't have video assistants. So I think on the whole, we get the offside correct. As to your other point about the really hard fouls, the theory behind showing cards in soccer is to get a change of behavior. And so sometimes you can be as effective talking to a player after a hard foul as you can with showing a card. You know, I will show cards in the first minute of the game. I don't like to do it, but if I feel like I really have to, I will. But I found that a lot more times, more often than not, I can get by and do better for the game if I can go up to the player and go, you have to be a lot more careful than that. You're not going to like the way this match ends, right? And you can use your personality and you can use your player management skills as effectively as cards.
So that's when a referee does this, right? He does no more, right? You do that.
Well, that's usually the persistent infringer, the person who committed a foul over there, and you committed a foul over there, and you committed a foul over there, and we're only 15 minutes in. Okay, and if you keep this up, we're going to have 32 fouls by you, and that's not acceptable. So you need to stop.
Yeah. And I do understand, when you give early yellow, then there's opportunity. You have a red card, then you have a one-man down, and it just ruins the game for everybody. So I do understand not wanting to give that yellow card. So I do. It's just like in basketball, you don't want to give that first tech when you don't really have to. You want to try to talk him off the ledge, because then once he gets the first tech and he does something that's so outrageous, you have no choice but to toss him. So,
yeah. But I think one of the things that I've heard good referees say is that I'm not giving the card; it's something that they've earned.
Yeah,
it's. I'm just sitting. I need to enforce the laws of the game or the rules of the game, depending on what we're doing. And if you violated that, if you don't want me to enforce that law, what other law do you want me to not enforce?
Yeah.
So, if you've denied an obvious goal scoring opportunity, I have to send you off. You can't be the goalkeeper outside the penalty area.
Yeah. Gabi, do you want to jump in here or?
I try to, when it comes to like the harder fouls, I try to put myself in that player's position. Would I have liked that? How would that have felt to me? So I try to, I'm not saying, yes, give that yellow card right away, but, try to put yourself in their shoes. I also sometimes will say to players like, hey, how would you like it if that happened to you? Would you want me to give you that yellow card too? So, I don't know. I just try to put myself in their shoes, see what happens. I try to manage that as best as possible. Yeah, you want to keep everybody safe. You want to keep everybody on the field. So,
are there any calls that I missed that are really tough for officials? Those are the two things that stick out to me. I think this year I've noticed they seem to really want the team to earn the penalty. Like someone might be on the verge of flopping where it's kind of in a gray area. I've noticed that they're trying to make sure the penalty is a good one, but maybe that's just the luck of the draw of the games that I had. But
yeah, I would say that's probably just the luck of the draw. There are some old wives' tales about things like that, and one of the things that I've heard for a long time is if it's a foul outside the penalty area and it happens inside the penalty area, then it's a PK. And you just you can't, just because it happens with inside that 18-yard rectangle, if it's a foul, it's a foul, and we got to go. I think probably the hardest call that we have to make these days is handling. And I think I have a pretty good idea what is handling and what isn't. But unfortunately, most people that watch games don't. And Julian, you were talking about the differences between men's and women's games. There's a difference in handling in soccer between the men's game and the women's game, just because of the physiological differences between men and women, and where the center of gravity is for men as opposed to where it is for women. And women tend to play with their hands a little bit further out of their body frame than men do. And so what might be handling in a men's game might not be handling in a women's game, just because if you understand the physiological differences. And so handling can be a real, just because there's contact between the ball and the hand doesn't mean it's handling.
And the guys are more dishonest. They won't even agree with you. They'll just argue like, no, there's no way it's a handball. Whether the girl player raised her hand and said, oh my God, I just handled the ball.
I think the thing, Julian, that's challenging is not so much, this type of foul or the other. It's just that every transition in high school soccer now is a 60-yard sprint the other way. There's for the most part, and again, because we're playing on narrow fields and a lot of substitutions, there's not a lot of side to side play typically in a game. In a high level youth travel game, the referee can almost walk and observe for parts of the game where the ball is being strategically played back and forth. That just, in my experience, just doesn't happen in high school. It's ball changes possession and we're sprinting to the other end. And that gets exhausting and you can't be everywhere. On the field, Eric says, we get one chance, one shot. I try to make a real quick movie in my head about if we were watching this scene in slow motion on video review later, what call would I make, right? And so you just try to do the very best you can. I think we get the vast majority of stuff right. We absolutely do. If you want to, and I always invite, my line to coaches is stop, show me the video later, we can discuss it. And sometimes they're right, and it absolutely happened the way they said it did, and a lot of times it happened the way I thought it did too. But that's my view. It's like, hey, this is a high school game. We're here for the athletes. We'll watch a video later. Like, show me the video. They'll send us videos, and we'll watch it. And you learn. Every game teaches.
Yeah, except for the coaches who are wrong at yelling at you, and then they don't send you the video because they don't want you to know you were right.
Well, let's talk about when it's appropriate to throw fans out of the game or ask them to leave. So we talked about Ben's video today. We could talk about that as well. But the Washington Liberty Yorktown is a bitter rivalry, and also Langley and Yorktown is a bitter rivalry. And we played Langley in the regionals, or it was districts. And I think some of the kids might have had something to drink, but they're acting a little erratic in the stands. And the referee, he kept trying to, or maybe it was one of the linesmen was trying to get them to be quiet. And I just said, I just thought to myself, why would you even look up there and acknowledge that they even existed? Because I mean, it was all good, clean fun. They weren't doing anything outlandish. It was just kind of odd behavior. But this guy kept looking up into the stands, and part of me was like, well, if the stands were crowded, you wouldn't even notice one fan from another. But just because there was only like maybe 100 people up there, it was easy to see that these 5 people were making a lot of noise. I just thought it was unnecessary for him to keep looking up there. I thought if you ignore them, just focus on the game, I think you give them less of a rise out of it. But anyway, what's the appropriate way to handle fans in both high school and also club games?
We have very clear protocol at the high school level. Is that if it's a problem, then we stop the game and go to the game man. There's a game administrator at every game, and ask them to take care of it, and they do. We are not supposed to engage fans at the games. And so you're right. Like, there can be a bunch, and it is, quote, all in good fun. When it gets personal, either to me or to a player on the other team, hey, number 8, that's not high school. Like, we're stopping that, and we're getting the game administrator. Right. The youth is different a little bit because the coaches are on one side, the spectators are all on the other side. Eric and I don't know how Gabby does, my deal is you're going to stop. I can't throw you out. I'm not allowed to throw you out, but I'm not going to restart the game until you leave. But yep. I can't remember the last time I had to do that. I mean, usually maybe it's experience, right? And it's not that I take it. It's not that I allow it to happen, because Eric and Gabby know, like, I'm the zero tolerance guy. Like, we're not doing it this way today. But it is different because the fans are right, like basketball. The fans are right there, and the coaches are 60 yards away. They really don't have a lot of control over their own fans at the youth level.
Anyone want to add something to that, or
go, Gabby?
I've had a couple of instances this season where a couple of high school students in the stands were saying things directly to the opponent. To the point where the players on the field said something to the center official, and I said something to the center official at halftime and saying, like, basically backing up what these players were saying to him. And we got the site coordinators involved at that point, and basically told the boys, hey, you guys can be here and you can cheer for your team, but you can't say things to the other players to, antagonize them. Or, I was worried that whatever they were saying, the girls on the field would react to the opponents. And so I didn't want that to affect the game that they were playing. So that's at that point, that's when I thought, we need to have somebody step in. It's distracting to me. I can't do my job properly, and they can't play their game properly. So, there's going to be that like playful cheering, of course. But the second that you're kind of like taunting, the opponent, even your own players, like it's not right. They can't play their game.
Yeah. Come to think of it, by the way, in the Langley game, I think the official was probably in the right thing, because I think what they were doing was they were probably taunting a kid. It was kind of silly, but maybe that had to be it, because they weren't really arguing about a call. It was just kind of weird behavior. And to the kids' credit, they all knocked it off. It was not a problem.
And like I remember being back in high school, and you just like say stuff that you sound cool in the moment, or you think you sound cool, but really, like, how is it affecting them? Like, it's not doing any good.
No, I agree. So I think the ref was doing it himself. Instead, he should have gone to an administrator, and the administrator should have gone to the kids. But the referee would turn around, told the kids to knock it off twice, and then after the second time, they knocked it off. So it was fine. Yeah,
It worked.
it worked. It was fine. Eric, did you want to get in here?
I was just going to say that I would echo what Ben and Gabby have said. And I had a couple situations where I needed to get the athletic director or whoever was there. I need you to go stand over there by the guy in the red shirt because he said some things that were not appropriate. And if he'd been on the field, I would have had to send him off. But since I can't deal directly with him, I need you to do that. I was at a game. I'm not going to give specifics, but I was at a game where we were on comms. I advised my referee what was going on. No, the other assistant referee advised the referee what was going on. I looked behind me, and the athletic director was right behind me, and we were at a stoppage. And I said, we need to let this guy go across the field to make a big scene out of it, so that everybody knows the hammer is coming over to them.
Yeah.
And after that, and we did that. He walked all the way across the field, and it got really silent, and we didn't have any problems the rest of the game. It's great.
Yeah, I think if you handle it with good common sense, and you go forcefully, and it can work out fine. And I think what you said, Eric, is true, or maybe it was Gabby. They're just having fun, and they're being stupid. Just remind them, look, do you really want to taunt that one player or whatever? So again, guys, what about if the crowd is just yelling at you guys, like you missed the offsides, and they won't let it go? Like Ben, I think in your video, I think there was a second ball that was on the field, I believe, and they wouldn't let this thing go. They just kept fussing about it. I'm not sure what happened to make it come to a head, but what happens if they're just yelling at the refs and they're not taunting? They keep incessantly yelling for the offsides or the penalty or whatever.
I don't think it happens that much. Yeah. And when it does, the solution is the same as what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Just get the athletic director's attention and say,
Right.
You need to tell those people to go settle down.
Right.
So I think what's important is if I'm the center referee and one of my assistant referees is close to the fans who are yelling at that assistant referee because he or she is missing offsides, is no, I'm going to protect my assistant referee. We are not doing that here today anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not about being tough, because we don't want to be thick-skinned and tough, because it just makes it harder for the referee who's got that team the next week. Mm-hmm. But again, let me just emphasize, 95% of the coaches, 99.9% of the director of student activities and the field managers, they know that this is an athletic event for high school students, and they know what's really important. And so if you ask them, like I've had coaches turn around to the stands and tell the stands to shut up, right? Without me saying anything, because the coach knew that the referee team was correct. So the adults in the game, the vast majority of the adults in the high school game are good people who understand why we're there. What happens in the spectator in the stands is like you have one or two knuckleheads who are loud. And that's what happened in that West Springfield game. and then everybody else chimes in, and you had one of the best referees in the area on that game, and I was actually assistant referee on the far side of the field. So I didn't.
Oh, you were there. You were actually there that night.
I was actually on the other side of the field, and I didn't know really what was going on until the end of the game. But what happens is like one or two people will go, and then the rest kind of like get in this line and start yelling, and it's just no good. That game there was momentum and tension building through the whole game because one team had been ahead, the other team had gotten tied near the end of the game, and it was unfortunate. But you had a very experienced referee team who did not make a mistake in that incident, right? We did not handle that wrong at all. And what we're doing, what Ben is doing by videos, and what Brian Barlow is doing with videos is we don't have to, we want to embarrass people. Like, if you're going to do this and we catch you, we're just going to out you, right? And the video will tell the story. We don't editorialize, right? The video will tell the story, because no sane adult thinks that stuff is appropriate.
Yeah.
Something that Ben and I have talked a bunch about is the parents that are there who afterwards go, I wish Steve would shut up, right? That parent needs to go to Steve and say, knock it off. There needs to be more self-policing because, as we've already said several times, the bulk of the parents and the spectators are good. It's just a few knuckleheads. And the good parents and the good spectators need to get those people under control and say, but this is not how we want to be represented. Yeah. We don't want people to see our school like this. This is not how we do this. So I wish that would happen more.
As an official, I used to be able to ignore almost anything that was spontaneous. If it was spontaneous reaction, I could ignore almost anything spontaneous. I just don't want to make it into a discussion. Even if I missed the call, after your reaction, I'll ignore it. If I blew the call, especially, and you reacted, the coach goes crazy, just briefly, I'll ignore that, especially if I blew it. But if I got it right, I'll look at him. But
we're going to have you recruited into soccer refereeing by the end of this call here.
Exactly. I feel like I'm part of the crew already.
You've got experience. Yeah. You've done something that's harder, I think, which is basketball, because everything is in a 4 foot by 4 foot space that goes on. We got a whole field you can run up and down, dude.
Exactly. I can really get in shape. Well, but speaking of behavior, at least in high school, the crowd is up in the stands. In the club, they could be, a feet, especially from the lines person. They're right there saying, hey, that guy's missed. You got to help him. Help your partner over there. And I mean, it's the whole game. They're running back and forth with the flag. And you got those 2 or 3 parents that are nonstop on them. And I really feel bad when it's a kid. It's a kid who's, 18-year-old kid, probably only been doing it for a year or two. And these parents are just laid into them.
Well, if you are on a game, Julian, and you see it, yeah, and you don't do something about it as the smart, sane adult in the game, then, and I'm not making this personal to you, but then that adult is part of the problem. And I would be the guy who would go to when my kiddo was playing travel and high school, I would go to the parents on our team and tell them to shut up. And yeah. They didn't like me. They didn't like me. But, either the adults are going to save the game, or gradually, the game is going to devolve. We're going to increase the referee shortage. And when you don't have referees, then, the game is going to suffer. We're trying to make the game good for the youth and the high school player. The pro leagues, that's different. College is probably different. Again, I haven't done that. Eric does that. Gabi does some college stuff. That's probably different. We're trying to protect the youth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't want to officiate basketball is I'm afraid of some idiot to have a gun up in the stands. I mean, when I was like 21 or so, I had a guy who went to get a gun in a rec game, and I had to leave. The guy ran the gym, said, Julian, just leave. Don't worry about it. We'll pay you for the games. So you just never know what's going to happen with these people. And so it is a valid concern. Again, I think the quality of officiating is still really high. At the high school level, I was really impressed. So somehow you're able to cobble together, some good trios out there.
Well, thank you for that. And Gabi's mom works when it's in season, and a couple of weeks before the season. I don't know when she sleeps.
Yeah.
I will definitely pass that along to her. So
And then there's other administrators at CSOA who are dealing the morning after, right? They're looking at video, they're taking calls from athletic directors and principals, like if a coach or a player gets sent off, like there's a whole number of things that happen when a red card happens. Like we don't like to give red cards because now we're doing paperwork and we're on the phone at night at 11:30 at night doing reports, which sucks.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys think that's the biggest issue that's driving refs away is the behavior of the coaches, fans, and players. That's number one.
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and the fact you have to be, if you're not to some level of fitness, it's just not going to be fun. I mean, it can't be fun, right? You
Yeah.
have to be, whether you're doing youth or high school or whatever, right? You gotta work at it a little bit or a lot.
So,
I feel like I came off a couple of games this past season, and I think this goes for everybody. You come off some games and you're like, I don't know why I even do this. Like you just are so like bogged down with everything that happened. It's like so emotional. You get yelled at, you get followed to your car, whatever happens. But then there are also those redeeming games where you're like, that's why I do this, because this game is so awesome, because those players worked hard and they didn't give up no matter the score. So you have your pros and your cons always, but for every bad game, you have like 2 or 3 really good games.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those things where you do have those moments where you wonder why you do it. Like I also coached for many years, and officiating is nicer in some ways than coaching, because when you coach and you have a bad group, you are stuck with the whole season. You might be 2 seasons. Officials, at least if I was at Langley, I'm going to hopefully Westfield, and I get a whole, we shuffle up, we get a whole new deck, new hand. But when you get a bad bunch of coaching, you're really stuck. But I have to say, coaching has always been more rewarding. The relationships that I had with the kids, it's something else. I always struggle over which one I want to get back into. But like I said, officiating it's much more money than coaching. It's much more bang for your buck.
Well, what's cool, I think, for those of us who played sports as youngsters is that there's a place. So if coaching is your thing, there definitely is a place. If officiating is your thing, there definitely is a place for you. And for old guys, like it keeps me, running with 18-year-olds. And for me, there's nothing better. It is hard work. Like it's harder every year for me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like Gabi says, you come off of some games, you're like, damn, like we hit it. It was good. The crowd
It's a good
was
feeling.
good, the players were good. Awesome. Now it might be a 50-minute drive back to my house, but it was, a nice field. You go out to Loudoun County, they got dressing rooms for referees. Like it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Shout out to Champ High School. Woo!
Is that right? They get dress rooms and they give you like a bite to eat also sometimes.
Sometimes they do, but it's not what I want to eat at 56 years old after I've refereed.
Yeah.
I'm not really down for the pizza or the hot dogs and stuff. I'm like, I got a protein shake and I'm going to eat some fruit.
Right.
I like the water and Gatorade at halftime. That's
Yes.
nice.
Thank you for the water and Gatorade.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Eric, I'm 56 as well. So
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the next level, and then I want to end by talking about ways we can attract more officials, in on a positive note. But when I was running refereeing basketball, a lot of my colleagues were doing college games, Division III games, and other types of upper level basketball. And I never really wanted to do that because, like, for example, you would travel like to Mary Washington or Christendom College out in Winchester, or whatever, and there was no one in the stands. So it wasn't a whole lot of fun. You get to drive a long way. So I was always like, forget about it. I just want to do high school. High school basketball, especially when I was officiating, was king. And I never really wanted to do like Division III college. So what is the draw, the attraction of college soccer? What are the opportunities? And is it much different than doing high school or high level club soccer here?
Yeah, well, college, generally speaking, pays a lot more. And the higher divisions you get, the more money you can get. I've only done Division III soccer. My daughter Katie did some Division I matches.
Wow.
I remember one match she had where she got paid $400 to run a line, plus she got travel. And she had an assignment that got canceled because of COVID. And if it hadn't, she was going to make over $800 to run a line in a Division I women's match. So there's a lot of money to be made out there. It's a lot of travel. I had one day where I did a morning match at Randolph-Macon and an evening match at Eastern Mennonite University. And I think I logged in about 350 miles that day, that one day. But it's hard work at college, but it's very rewarding. I just really love it. We talk about ignoring the crowd. I totally tune people out in college because I know that they have a lot more leeway about what they can get away with. I don't have an athletic director in college where I can say, would you take care of those fans? If they're standing right behind me and giving it to me, I'm just got to stand there and take it. And I'm just not listening to it. I'm trying to focus on what's going on and just let it go. There's a lot of opportunities to referee professional soccer around here too. And Ben and Gabi and I know a lot of the people that go out to Loudoun to referee the DC United team, go down to Richmond and do the Richmond Strikers. And like I've already said, we have 2 FIFA referees, but we also have several national referees from this area. And so the opportunities for advancement are there. And I think those people find it very rewarding. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. You know, like our friend Daniel Chesky gets to travel around the world on FIFA's dime and gets to referee in far-flung places. And we watch her on TV, and she's doing a great job. So there are a lot of side benefits to the gig as well if you're successful.
Yeah.
Gabi, are you doing collegiate games this fall?
I am. I have a number of games on the schedule already, but I think the biggest appeal for me is the level of the game. So I stopped playing soccer at the collegiate level, and going back and refereeing that level is just, I don't know, it's so nice. Like, I just feel like I fit on the field. And so just that level of play is really great. And then I also really love the college atmosphere. Like, it's much more of a spectacle when you're on the field than like a USSF game, because you have the stadium, you have to let everybody know what's going on when you're on the field. So I do enjoy that a lot. But, and then, yes, the pay is more, but like Eric said, you're traveling a lot more. It's a larger time commitment. So yeah.
Gabi, when the play is better and the skill's higher, does it make it easier or harder to officiate? Because like in basketball, if the players are better, in some ways it's easier to officiate because they play through stuff. They know they don't do a lot of stupid stuff out there. In some ways they kind of police themselves. On the other hand, if you're at that level, games tend to mean more. So it's kind of more pressure, kind of external pressure that's put on you.
Yeah.
Is that the same way for soccer?
I think for me in particular, like, I just am more comfortable with that type of play. So I find it a little bit easier. Whereas like in the high school game, people are still trying to kind of figure out like, okay, if I do this, this will be the result. Whereas by the time they get to college, they've had, good enough coaching to, figure out where to go, what to do, skill levels and everything like that. That I do find it a little bit easier, but you can always be thrown for a loop here and there too.
Yeah.
So expect the unexpected, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so easy to screw something up, or something just happens where like it's a 50-50 and no matter what you do, one side's going to be upset. There's really nothing you can do about it. And
Exactly.
that's part of being official.
I had a college match last fall where my referee turned his back to play in an appropriate situation because he was looking to see where the ball was going to go. And the guy that kicked the ball, miskicked the ball, hit him in the back of the head, knocked him out. And the referee somehow was able to recover and finish the rest of the match.
Oh, wow, good.
But a couple of days later, my daughter, Katie, sent me a link and said, "Hey, have you seen this video?" And it was my referee. He got knocked out. He had over 6 million views on TikTok within a
Did
week.
he?
Yes.
He went viral. There you
I
go.
actually think I did see that on TikTok.
Yeah, I'm sure that you did because it was
Yeah.
floating around. It happened right in front of me and he was out.
Yeah.
We were
yeah,
80 minutes. We had 10 minutes left to go. I called him the next day because I was certain that he had been really messed up. And he was like, "No, I feel fine." But yeah, then there's that video.
Yeah.
So things happen.
Hopefully he can monetize that.
No, because it was one of the players that posted it up. So the player got his college scholarship just from my referee's bad luck.
Well, guys, this has been great. I would like to do this, quarterly or occasionally. I do the same thing for coaches, and I do a basketball officials one as well. But I wanted to kind of leave tonight on the topic. We talked a little bit about maybe players could be great prospects for officials as a way to replenishing the ranks. And players understand the game. They loosely know what's supposed to be called because they've been playing for so long. So that's one aspect of it. But other things need to be done. I guess we talked a little bit about policing the sidelines more. What are some of the other things that can be done to get more officials and to retain more officials?
I know across the country, there are programs now where they are teaching officiating in high school as a part of the physical education program.
That's awesome.
They are using those kids to referee at the junior high school level or the middle school level. So that's a way. In some cases, in some cities around the country, there's more active public service announcements, encouraging people to come out. I don't know how effective they are, but those are a couple of things that around the country, because the shortage is everywhere and it is across all sports, that associations and organizations and leagues are doing to recruit referees. Again, I think there's so many players, as you say, Julian, if I could just get them introduced to it, have great mentors like Eric teaching them, and then having a support system. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, and when I was 18, I was doing high-level senior amateur games in DC, the international ethnic leagues and stuff. There really wasn't a support system. There wasn't video. There wasn't like we could get on with a group and discuss games, and so that was hard for me. But if we get and we have a pretty robust support system here in Northern Virginia, because there's guys and gals like the folks on this call who are ready, willing, and able to show up and to mentor a kiddo who tries it and says he or she is, "Oh, this is kind of cool. I'm interested. I would like to be good at it." That's who we like to work with the best, because we can most definitely help get them the right games, help get them noticed by the right assigners, and then protect them when they're doing, as Gabi mentioned earlier, when you're doing that next level up game, a game that challenges you, like get men and women out there to mentor, coach, assess. It's a lot of work because, we have X hours a week to devote to refereeing. If in mine, I like to referee, more than I like to mentor, right? Mentoring would be cool, but if I have time, I'm going to go do a game. But I think that those are a couple of things that we're working on.
Anyone else want to go here?
Ben, talk about the business cards you used to have. The
Which
yellow
one?
business cards.
Look, I just wrote a book, right? Published a book. You, a teenage soccer referee. Eric contributed to that book. Jesse Rosenthal contributed to the book. We mint coins. I just I want people to, like, every adult would say that we are right about everything we've talked about in terms of sportsmanship tonight. It's what happens when the pressure goes up and something happens in a game that a couple of them go knucklehead on us, right? And so the more that we can even encourage the adult in the game to be the one that says, "Hey, Julian, no, stop yelling at the referee, okay? Let's just let the referee do the game," then the better chance we'll have of improving it. I don't know. I think it is getting worse. It has gotten worse. Maybe that's because we see more of it because of social media. But we need folks, especially young referees like Gabi, right? Men or women, Gabby's age, like, we need you. You finish your high school career, you finish your college career. Let's come and do this because you can stay in it for a long, long time.
Funny story, and Gabby, I'll let you jump in here as well, but this is along the lines of what Ben was just talking about. So Alexandria, their travel club, your financial aid can be tied to games you referee on their house league, which is great because so all the kids, they do games and a lot of them become really good officials. We had this one kid named Diego Flores, wonderful kid, awesome soccer player. But he was making so much money officiating that his mom was like, are you going to referee 3 games or are you going to go play in your travel game? So, Diego was having to choose, and we love Diego, but he had, 4 or 5 brothers and sisters, and he was making so much money that he was having to choose between refereeing games and playing travel. So it was kind of a push pull there. So
It is. What a wonderful opportunity to be able to choose to do one or both of that.
Yeah. Cool. Oftentimes he did both. He would referee 2 games and he would come tired, and he was so talented. He was so skilled. he would still play great. And he's a really good ref too. So Gabby, did you want to add something here? Or?
Well, I was just going to say, I wish I would have started refereeing earlier in my life while I was still playing soccer. And when I started refereeing out in Hawaii, a lot of the younger kids who were referees, they would be refereeing so that they could save up money to get their plane tickets to go to tournaments not on the island, so back in the mainland. So I think it's awesome that they were basically paying for their trip or paying to play soccer through their own money and their own hard work. So you're learning so many professional skills at a young age, and you're making money. That's great.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot in my referee classes, and I've said it a couple of times already. This is the best job that a teenager can have, but that's not just the money. It's what Gabby just touched on. Here we're going to put a teenager in a position of authority over an adult, right? There aren't really, I can't think of any other jobs where we're going to do that, and they're going to be paid well. And the people that send you out there to do those matches are going to back you up on your decisions as well. So this being a teenage soccer referee is such a great opportunity for a young person to do something they already know, excel at it, do a really good job at it, get paid really well. And now you got some super resume material for your college application, for any job resumes that you submit in the future. You already have this tremendous work experience. Mm-hmm. You can't beat it. Can't beat it.
So Gabby reminds me of a story. So when I started refereeing, I was very young looking. When I was 19, 20 years old, it looked like I was like 13 years old. So I was doing official, games like Eric was saying, and in these positions of responsibility. Well, I was at Louisa High School in Central Virginia, and this cheerleader kept trying to get my attention, because I was very young looking. So it was kind of uncomfortable. So we go into the locker room after the game. She comes and knocks on the locker room door. So I'm really embarrassed. And then it turns out she had gone to Robinson, and I was friends with the older sister, and she was just trying to say, we just moved here and I knew you. And I was like, oh God, it was an embarrassing moment. I was so young looking that no one, the coaches had to take me seriously, but sometimes the players didn't so much. So.
I'm not aware of there being any soccer referee groupies. Maybe Gabby or Ben have other experiences, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't think so. Not for me.
Well, look, Ben, I want to thank you for getting this great panel for me. This is amazing hearing you guys. It's a real positive discussion of ways we can make things better. Also, educational things like I didn't know, like the AD was supposed to talk to the fans if they're even jeering another player. That's very helpful to know that. A lot of times officials are very frustrated because they can't even explain why they did the things that they do. There's no mechanic for some of the things that you're trying to do. But anyway, I wanted to open it up for some final thoughts, and then also thank you guys for doing this.
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity to, get some of the things out. It's, pull the curtain back a little bit and let people know where we're coming from. I know that Gabby and Ben are the same way that I am, and that I'm going every match that I go to, I'm trying to give my best. I'm trying to do the best job. And most often, more often than not, I succeed. And in the few times when I make mistakes, or several times when I make mistakes, it's just because I'm human. But it's not because, there isn't any referee that goes to a match and goes, now, how can I screw this team? How can I? I don't know. I know a lot of referees. I've never heard anybody say anything like that. So if you think we're out to get you, that's not true. We're out there to do the best job that we can for the good of the game. So thanks for having me tonight, Julian. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for doing this. Hopefully you come back. Ben and Gabby, did you want to?
Thank you again for having us. Ben, thanks for the invite. This has been great, and I hope you can have more of these. And just everybody remember that we are also human. We're daughters, sisters, mothers, husbands, sons, everything, as well. So just, have respect, and we're also human. So we make mistakes and we try to do our best.
And also, fans, if you mess with Gabby, her mother is the assigner. So just tread carefully on that one.
Yeah, I just want to say, Julian, thanks for your work, because it's really neat to have this high school community that you have kind of put together through your podcasts and your other social media. So it's really cool, and again, most of the people in the game are great. We just want people to know that we don't just show up. We work hard. We hate being wrong. There's no one who is harder on a referee than being inside one of these closed referee groups on Facebook, and referees looking at video and letting each other know, what we could have done better, to put it mildly. And we enjoy the game every bit as much, I think, as the players and the coaches. We're not there to screw the game up. We're there to have fun, get fitness for ourselves, be a part of the game that we all were a part of at some level, when we were younger. And it's just a great opportunity for us. And we just hope any referee any youngster or any coach who sees this and has players like, come talk to us, come talk to any of the associations we've mentioned, because it's a cool way to stay in the game.
Yeah, and as Gabby was saying earlier, it's a great feeling when you come off the field, and it's one of those games that went well. No one's really yelling at you. You felt like the best team. The goals were well earned, and you feel like you did your job, and it is a good feeling, and that does happen a lot. But we tend to remember the games when. Like Ben's West Springfield game. Those are the ones that sometimes kind of stick with the general public. But there are games when it is a great feeling when you come off the field.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having us on, Julian.
What's that?
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on tonight.
Yeah. We'll be in touch, and hopefully you guys will share this video. I have it ready in the morning. But thanks again for coming on, Ben. Thanks again for getting Gabby and Eric, and thanks for suggesting it. I'm glad we did this. It was a lot of fun.
All right.
Good. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks again, guys.
See you later.
Alrighty.